welcome back to another video. Just kind of a random equipment update, etc. Just got back last night from the LA Phil brass concert. They only do this every few years, kind of randomly. Happened last night, and it was amazing. I'm feeling very inspired by the playing that I heard. Wow. If you get the chance to go to something like that, wherever you are, please do. Man, that was so cool. I just happened to pick up a horn that is not for me. A friend of mine bought this, and I went and picked it up because it's local to me, and I'll ship it off soon. But I thought I'd talk about this very neat 1951 New York Bach 36B with what I think is a red brass bell. Yeah, there's a few of these around, but there's not that many New York Bach 36Bs. This has a 4-digit serial number that starts with a 3. This is a very early Bach. I mean, the company had only been around for like 20-something years at this point. So this is like the green hoe of its day. This is like as fancy as it gets for the orchestral trombonist. And the word on the street, the guy I bought this from, got it from the very first principal trombone of the Israeli Philharmonic. So it's got some pedigree to it. Very cool horn. Just take a quick look at the bell stamp there. Model 36. Now, of course, there's no B or anything because it's just random. It's got the big old signature. And then New York 67, which I think is like the borough that they were working in at the time. So cool. You can see there's some little differences here between this and like later 42Bs and stuff. Of course, the 42B, exactly the same as this, with a half-inch larger bell and a different slide section. But this is all the same on a 42B, or it should be. On this, you can see the back bow of this is pretty round compared to the very square part that is on a 42B. And just generally the wrap doesn't look the same. The valve is also a little bit different. I had it apart, and it doesn't look like other 42 valves I've seen. The linkage is the under the thumb version rather than the over the thumb version they moved to later, and it has similar ball and socket linkage like the corporation up until kind of like the 80s horns, but is different in pretty noticeable ways. You can see the stop arm is like really chunky. It's just like a big piece, kind of for no reason. I can see why later they would just make this out of a smaller piece of brass. Kind of a waste. And you can see these look pretty hand bent. This shape right here, it's kind of like not quite centered. It's not quite the same dual radius that we see on normal Bachs. Even the shape of this is actually a little bit squared off. It's got that dual radius look that we see on the tuning slides and stuff like this usually. But this is just the F attachment crook. So again, a difference. On earlier horns like this, they have same length over sleeves instead of the lower one being a lot longer and the top one being a lot shorter. Another way to tell them apart. Usual yellow brass slide, yellow brass crook. I think all this is original, even though the ferrules on the crook look a little bit aftermarket to me, like someone maybe had the crook off at some point. And the slide tenon itself may be a later replacement. This might just be how they looked, but it's not a nickel part like it is on all modern Bachs. It looks like it's just a brass part, which could be original. I have no idea. I'm sure this has seen some wear and tear, as they say. I've talked to the owner about this a little bit because he's paid for it and everything. The slide, this is solid like 5 out of 10. It's got chrome loss all up and down the slide, not just on the stockings where it usually comes off, but in just random spots on the inners, everywhere. So the chrome plating at the time, probably not amazing, and I'm sure the slide was not taken care of perfectly for the last 72-ish years that it's been on the planet. So slide could use some work. If I were to own this, and I will not, it is not mine, I would probably just use a different slide. It would be, the smartest thing would be to retube the slide, but then you're kind of losing everything about the original character of it. And what's the point? I just use a different 36 slot. But the valve feels really good. It has compression. It seems to play pretty well. It is flat. That's the downside. If I play an F, you notice it makes that F noticeably flatter, which means low F in first position, not really there. The way I tune, I don't like that. I would want that to be shorter. That's interesting. I'm not sure why you would want this to be just straight up flat. You're not going to play a lot of like low Bs on your Bach 36, even though at the time this was the premier orchestral trombone out there, tenor trombone. This was, like I said, like the Greeno, the Shires. This was the custom, awesome instrument you would buy. And like I said, I think it has a red brass bell. Bach does not make red brass bells. They have not, I think, since they moved from New York or maybe the Mount Vernon factory, that's just not a thing. They don't do red brass bells. But if we check this out, I have a Bach gold brass bell right here. 80/20 gold brass. I just polished this and it looks amazing. And this obviously has some lacquer on it and it's patinaed a little bit, but there's a pretty stark difference between these colors. I don't think that this is the normal gold brass, and it's obviously not yellow brass because the rest of this instrument is, and it doesn't look the same. I think it's red brass. If we check it out next to this rose brass horn, this is my King 608, which I also removed the lacquer from and polished, and it also looks amazing. It's even darker than the rose brass, 8515. This looks like 9010 rose or red brass. So that's pretty cool. Red brass Bach. They're out there. They're not super common. I'm not sure. There's like no marking on the bell, of course. For instruments like this, the owner can request a shop card from Bach, which will have, most if not all the specifications of this particular instrument. So hopefully that's out there, and they can say, oh yeah, that's a 36B, red brass bell, no other special changes, I would assume. It does look like it has a French bell bead, which means it's kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like flat on the front. Whatever. It's a little bit different than modern Bachs in most ways. You can see the regular bell bead is just kind of a circle, not really anything special, and this is a little bit flatter on the back, with just a little bit of a difference. So far, I've just played it a little bit. I've lubed it up and all that kind of stuff. It plays pretty well. I'm not like blown away by it, but it does make a pretty cool sound. Again, I would like to play it with a different slide that's more usable because it's just a little bit hard to play. And it is interesting. I've played it side by side with my 525, my King 608, which was very cheap. It has no provenance. And this is a little easier to play. I actually don't mind the sound difference. This still sounds pretty good. And for my uses is exactly what I need. This, a little too like Bordoni, a little too classical. And that just is not something I need in my personal stable. I think the buyer will be quite happy with it though, especially if they have more 36 slides. So that's very cool. Obviously I've stripped some bells of lacquer. I want to show one more bell that I stripped. I've just been kind of going crazy with this because I've finally figured out a good system. And I finally stripped my screw bell, my Bach 50 screw bell. It's just had really patchy lacquer and just kind of looked like butt its entire life. And I was like, you know what? I'll just redo that. My 42 turned out really, really well after many, many attempts. And so did my 608. They both look really, really good. Obviously, my previous Kings did as well. And so I did this 50 screw bell. And this is what resulted. This awesome patina. I have no explanation as to why this happened. I did change my lacquer removal process just a little bit because I just got a steam cleaner, which uses 212 degree water, vapor to, like lift things off of surfaces. And it's really helped get lacquer off of these bells. And something about the combination of the steam cleaner, maybe this lacquer, and maybe the way I was using the oven cleaner resulted in this super cool black look to the bell. And it was happening enough as I was doing passes over it. I was like, you know what? I think I might leave it this way because it looks so cool. So for now, I will not polish this. When I remove the lacquer from those horns, of course, it looks nasty. There's just like a bunch of little droplets of oven cleaner and just, they look gross. It's not worth leaving them the way they are. So I polish them, and that takes some elbow grease, and they look awesome. This, I'm just not going to polish. It looks so cool as is. That kind of like antique finish. I think some people will use like blow torches and stuff. Again, I did not use that. I just used oven cleaner, and I used the steam cleaner to remove the oven cleaner, and this resulted. Super cool look. I'm actually going to try and replicate it on some future stuff that I remove lacquer from. I don't know what yet because I don't think I have anything that needs to have lacquer removed, but I'm going to try and do this again. That's very cool. So that's it. Cool New York 36B. Some other stuff. I went to a cool concert, go to live music, and I will have the NAMM report up soon because I'm going to NAMM tomorrow. That's it. Bye.